looking forward 30 years later is how a gender perspective is informing our efforts to prevent atrocities, to prevent conflict, and to prevent sexual violence. And I think what we've learned there is that the normalization of violence, in particular the normalization of sexual and gender-based violence, is one of the risk factors or early warning signs for more generalized violence. Again, like if groups are preparing, for, major, sort of human rights violations and, quests for domination and control of territory, they often start by oppressing communities through this type of violence and, governing through the repression of households and communities who are fearful that their family members will be raped and will be shamed, and that the whole community will be dishonoured.
And do you have any, talking about atrocity prevention and possible indicators, do you have any examples from more recent times of situations where one need to kind of follow closely the development?
Yeah, definitely. And maybe just to give an example from Myanmar, and I think we could even see this in other countries which would have state-sanctioned extremism, Buddhist extremism, for example, where you start with discrimination in law against other groups, but specifically with regard to gender, where you legislate that minority groups need to apply to have children, and that they can only have children according to the state regulation, according to a certain spacing of family members and timing. And that's to control the population, but the control of the minority population is through the regulation of women's bodies, right? And that's already creating the conditions. It's already a violation of human rights, but it's creating the conditions in which those bodies are viable. They're thought of as objects that can be subject to control and violence.
Where the groups would be defined based on religious and or ethnic criteria.
Yeah, minority status. Yeah, exactly. And where the state is seeking to build their power and their governance through the majority religion and ethnicity.
Do you have any recent examples?
So the example that I was giving there, without naming it, is the example of Myanmar and the law that was passed specifically requiring Muslim citizens to register their intent to increase their family.
And which again was something leading up to a
So it was leading up to the genocide in Rakhine State.
Yeah, because you consider it a genocide, not only mass.
Well, it is. It is considered a genocide. It has been named as a genocide by the UN Human Rights Council. Yeah. So, and I think other things that we know in terms of early warning indicators with regard to Rakhine State, whilst we see sexual and gender-based violence, as I said, because of the stigma, it doesn't tend to get reported because people fear reprisals. Humanitarian actors on the ground and where there is access do have information and do know about the violence that's occurring and are able to securely report that through international mechanisms, such as the mechanisms related to the Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sexual Violence and Conflict, but also through the global monitoring system. And I think those are risk factors for widespread atrocities. And what we saw in our research in Rakhine State and Myanmar, looking at the period of unofficial reporting of sexual and gender-based violence in Rakhine State, from 1998 through to 2016, we saw the year before the genocide or the generalised violence and atrocities in Rakhine State, we saw the highest level of sexual and gender-based violence reporting over the, over the almost 20-year period before. So we can already see that the potential for real-time reporting of this violence by media, where the media has access, by humanitarian actors, where they have access, can be a key indicator.